Hey, this is Boney James. This is Butter. This next song is a tune that I wrote with a keyboard player friend of mine named Mark Stevens. I called it Butter because I say it's delicious and delightful, but also maybe a little dangerous.
everybody. I think we're going to get started here. Thank you all so much for coming out to this event tonight and for braving the rain. I know we had some crazy hail earlier, so thank you for coming anyway, despite all of that. My name is Grayson. I'm a organizer with the Kshama Solidarity Campaign, and I'm really happy to be here at Reverend Jeffrey's church tonight, especially to stand alongside someone who is such a tireless advocate for working people himself to defend our movement leader, Kshama Sawant, against this racist right-wing recall that we're facing here in District 3. So thank you so much, and thank you to Reverend Jeffrey for hosting this event as well. So yeah, I think we are just going to have Reverend Jeffrey speak, and then we will have Kshama speak, and then we will do what we're here to do tonight, which is raise some money so we can build this movement to defeat this recall that's happening on December 7th. And I would also like to just say that Reverend Ying of the Bethany UCB Church also wanted to be here tonight, and she sends her solidarity in this fight against the recall, but she was unable to make it, but she sends her regards and all her solidarity to this event. So yeah, thank you. Welcome, Reverend Jeffrey.
Greetings, everybody. It's just good to be here. People ask me, why do I support Kshama Sawant? I support her because she's a fearless fighter for this community and for people of color. And I think that in Seattle, that's a dangerous thing to be. And we can see how she is coming up against tremendous opposition, especially with this recall. We opened up 2 doors of our church tonight because we feel that she has been very supportive of New Hope Baptist Church, very supportive of our desire to reclaim the spaces in the community that were taken from us unjustly. And she's not only that, she's supportive of all of the community people who now struggle to retain spaces in a place that they have been in for many years. I just think that the struggle is something that all of us should be involved in. I know that many of you could not come tonight to this space and to this place, but you can support. You can support. And, I've already given my donation. I've already written my check for $500. And I've already, acknowledged that I'm on board. I'm on board to support the Sawant campaign, have been on board since the beginning. I see in her, as I said, a fearless fighter for the people. In these times, that's what we need. We need someone who is fearless. The psychological weapons, the kind of money, big business money that goes against people who are standing for the community is limitless. And they will spare nothing to hurt or to move aside anyone who has the voice of the people. I've been in the struggle for a long time. And I know the voice of the people when I hear it. I know what a fearless fighter looks like. And so Kshama Sawant is that person. We have to do what we can to keep her on city council. We have to do what we can to stop this, to make sure that this recall does not work. So as a minister in the community, I'm here to do that. I'm here to do whatever I can. I'm pleased to have with me tonight Bishop Tyson, who is president of the state convention, both Washington State and Oregon, who is joining me in this struggle and joining us in this struggle to keep Kshama Sawant on the council. So all of you who came out, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. And all of you who are online, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining us online. In these times, we can't always get to places that we want to get to, but we can still do the work. We can still engage in the struggle. Those of you who are watching, I think it's going to be on the screen where you can send your checks, where you can send your donations. Let's make them regret having this recall. Let's make them regret it. Let's let them know what community organizing looks like, what freedom fighting looks like, what courage looks like, and what sustainability looks like. Thank you. Thank all of you. And thank you, Kshama, for being here and for being the person that you are and for being a fearless, fearless fighter for those who cannot fight for themselves, like the people on Rainier Avenue right now in the Rainier Apartments. And I know Kshama's going to say a lot about that. But those people, senior citizens, I saw them pushed. I saw them shoved. I was even shoved myself. I mean, I saw them ignored. I saw people who do not care about what is going on in Seattle, that old people don't have money to have their rents raised in the state. That cannot be a sustainable way to run a low-income, medium-income apartment in the central area, especially an elderly apartment. You can't run it that way. And my heart goes out to those senior citizens, the lady with lupus who was grabbed and manhandled. I don't know how old she was. I'm sure she was in her 80s. She stood her ground and filed a complaint, and my hat's off to her. All of the people who will not be pushed around. We are tired of being pushed around. We're tired of being told that we can't, that this is not possible. We're tired of people telling us that people who fight for us are not good people. We're tired of people hurting and dehumanizing and marginalizing people who care about the people. We're here tonight to say when we fight, we win. When we fight, when we fight, when we fight. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Kshama, for being here. And thank you for your support, which I know you're going to do right now. Those of you who can, write a check. Those of you who can, let's help keep Kshama in the council. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend. I've also learned that I don't need to stand quite so close to the mic. I just wanted to take a step back here really quick and just ask, show of hands, who knows what's going on with the recall? Who knows what a recall is? Show of hands, awesome. Who knows what the charges are going to be on the ballot? Few people? Few people? Who knows when the ballots are coming out? Few people? Awesome. So I think it's important just to take this space, just to unravel a little bit of what's going on with this recall. So basically, we had an election in 2019 where where we were, this campaign of what ended up being Kshama Sawant versus not really Egan Orion, but actually like Amazon and massive corporations who put $1.4 million into that race to try to make sure Kshama didn't win. It was about who ran Seattle, Amazon or working people, and we found out who runs Seattle. We do. And right after that victory, not only right after that victory, but also right after a historic summer of protest in which 20 million people took to the streets, to fight for racial justice, to fight against police brutality. The summer where we won the Amazon tax, which is, will amount to $2 billion worth of funding taken directly from big corporations into our community for affordable housing and Green New Deal programs. After those massive, massive victories, these charges of recall were filed. And basically, there are three of them. And 2 of them are for Kshama's participation in peaceful protests with the Black Lives Matter movement, and the 3rd is for organizing the Tax Amazon movement. So I think it's obvious where those charges stand and are about, malfeasance of office, or like the legal jargon that is going on, that you're going to see in the media or whatever. It's about, getting a movement leader out of office, which is what they've wanted to do since Kshama won in 2013. And I think that is exemplified in the fact that, like, fundamentally what we're fighting against in this recall is the fact that this is a totally undemocratic endeavor from top to bottom. These charges that I mentioned, though they've gone through a court process, they've never at any point had to be proven true, believe it or not. From basically the only level of legitimacy that they have to meet is that if they did happen exactly the way the recall said they did, would they be grounds for a recall? And of course, they didn't happen the way that the recall says that they did. And of course, also, not a singular point during this whole process has Kshama been allowed to testify on her own behalf about what really happened at the protests, about her genuine role in them. And at no point has an actual jury decided whether or not Kshama is guilty of, leading a march to the mayor's house, or, all of this other stuff that they say that she did. So not only are the charges misrepresenting Kshama's role in the protests, misrepresenting hold it, like that? Oh, okay. Misrepresenting Kshama's role in the protests themselves, misrepresenting the Black Lives Matter movement as a whole. They've never had to be verified by the court at all. And then, as if that wasn't undemocratic enough, the recall basically engineered the least democratic election that they could. Everybody has already sent in their ballots for the November election. That election is done. And I will tell you, as someone who has put in just like dozens and dozens and dozens of hours, door knocking for this campaign, door knocking to let people know what is up with the recall. And every volunteer for the Kshama Solidarity Campaign has the same story. We talked to a ton of people who believe that they have already voted against the recall because they already sent their ballots in. Like, I did it, I sent in my ballot, I voted for all the progressive candidates, I voted against the recall. No, in fact, because the recall intentionally, in submitting their signatures to the state during this whole long bureaucratic process, missed the deadline for the November election. And so King County elections had no choice but to set the specialist of special elections, December 7th. There has never, ever, 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 ever in the history of Seattle been an election in December. And there's a reason for that, because people aren't looking out for ballots. They are, they're concerned with the holidays. They're concerned with, weathering a very gloomy Seattle atmosphere, which we all waded through to be here tonight. And so they are hoping that, people assume that it's a duplicate ballot from the general election and they throw it away. They hope that, people are out of town. And as we've seen in talking to people on the doors, this will have a real impact if we let it. And so part of the process, part of the reason that we're here today is not just to raise money in like an abstract way because, we just need money to run a campaign, but it's so that we can build the biggest visible atmosphere possible and show people that there is still an election happening, that there is still a very important race, I would argue the most important race happening in the country for someone who is not just a tireless advocate for working people, who is not just probably the only elected official that I know of in the entire country that directly organizes tenants to fight against rent hikes, to fight against squalid conditions without having to be asked. That's the kind of thing that we are talking about here. That's what's at stake. And the recall is so afraid of our movements, of our historic turnout, of us showing up, that they have tried to create circumstances in which they know that people won't. And so that's what we're fighting back against today. And I am super grateful to Reverend Jeffrey for being here, and I am very excited to welcome District 3 City Council member and tireless advocate for working people, Kshama Sawant, to come and speak to us.
Thank you, Grayson, and thank you so much, Reverend Jeffrey and Reverend Ying, who couldn't be with us here today, and Bishop Tyson. Really appreciate your presence here. And I think Grayson did a very important task, which was share with you all a little bit about the charges that are going to be on the recall ballot. This is what voters are going to see, and it is going to be our collective task. And this is a morally and politically our obligation this year, if we want to stand with our people, our community, black and brown, working class people, the poor, those of us who are marginalized from the incredible wealth of our society, if we stand for them, then it's our obligation to fight, as Grayson said, to get the vote out. And that is going to rest on us explaining what the charges are, which is all dishonest. And Matt, I'm sure, will add to what Grayson has said, or Tamar will add to what Grayson has said. So I want to talk about what lies between the lines. They talk about these charges, but what is big business and the right wing who are bankrolling this campaign, recall campaign, what are they really angry about? They are not angry about the things that they talk about in the charges, because the charges are all dishonest. What they are really angry about is the fact that our office, working people, communities in our city have had the nerve to fight for our own rights unapologetically. And not only that, we have won victories. That is what they are angry about. And for us, and so for them, for big business, the multimillionaires and the billionaires, there's a lot at stake in this election. It's no surprise that corporations from around the country and even international corporations are bankrolling them. But we also have a lot at stake for ourselves. We are in the Central District. This is the New Hope Missionary Baptist Church. We know in ground zero of the gentrification project of the wealthy. And who has suffered the most? It's our people who have suffered the most. And we know what has happened in the Central District. The black community, working people have been decimated out of here because of skyrocketing rents. And the struggle that is now ongoing at this apartment complex called Rainier Court that Reverend Jeffrey mentioned is emblematic of the crisis that faces the vast majority of working people in our city. Disproportionately, communities of color are affected, but we have an obligation, a moral and political obligation, to build genuine solidarity across race in the working class, because we are all reeling from an unaffordable city, but a city that could not function even a single day without our labor. That's why we have to fight for our rights. And what's happening at Rainier Court? Rainier Court is an apartment complex, supposedly affordable housing complex, run by a supposed nonprofit entity called SEED. 4 buildings, nearly 600 tenants. So this is a big complex. Many seniors, as you said, Reverend Jeffrey, the majority of them are seniors of color. They are on fixed income. Obviously, they have spent 3 decades serving our community in various jobs, and now they deserve a dignified retirement, and they are under attack. What has been happening is, for years, these buildings have been left in dilapidated conditions. They have faced months of having no heating in this season. Imagine, there are still seniors. I talk to them every single day. They still don't have heating in their apartments. They don't have stoves or refrigerators that work. Their apartments are infested with bed bugs and mold and cockroaches. And I am not making this up. I have seen these apartments with my own eyes. And these seniors, on top of that, are facing exploitative rent increases of $100 or more. I spoke to a senior woman who's born and brought, black woman, black senior, born and brought up in Seattle. She faces a chronic health condition, and her rent, and she's on a Section 8 housing voucher. She is a low-income tenant, and her rent went up by $240. I mean, this is criminal, what is going on in their apartment complex. And that is why, as Grayson mentioned, we have fought back. We have built a real struggle by empowering the tenants. In fact, many of them are members of your congregation, Reverend Jeffrey. And Reverend Jeffrey himself and Reverend Ying have been there in solidarity with us. And we have fought back. And actually, organizing, guess what? Organizing works. We already, within 10 days of organizing, were able to force the landlord to take back the rent increases. This is huge. But we can't afford to stop there, because they still owe them a refund of the rent increases that they paid in September and October and November. And on top of that, that's not enough. We are demanding that the landlord make a public promise not to increase rent in all of 2022. This is going to require a serious fight, so the fight continues. But while we are fighting, what happened was the really terrible treatment by one of their employees when we took a march to their office, including Reverend Jeffrey and Reverend Ying being physically manhandled. I mean, it is unbelievable if you watch that video. Tamar Wilson was there. He witnessed it himself. And it is disturbing the lengths to which they will go to try and intimidate this struggle. This is what it is. It's an intimidation tactic, so we cannot back off. On Friday, we have another tenant meeting. Reverend Jeffrey, you're going to be there with us. We need to make sure that we build a real momentum. Why? Not only for those tenants themselves, but we know that working class victories are contagious. If they can win, other renters will be empowered. In fact, just because that struggle was reported on the news, I can't tell you how many emails have come to my office from tenants across the city saying, can you help us do the same thing in our building, because we are also being exploited by our landlord. This situation that is being faced by renters, who are now the majority of our city, is an epidemic. It is not this or that building. It is an epidemic. And that is why we have to continue, as Reverend Jeffrey said, to fearlessly fight for renters' rights, as we have done in the past. And I want to talk about that in a second. But a crucial thing that we have to be fighting for, and that we have begun our movement for, that is to win strong citywide rent control. And what does strong citywide rent control means? It means that no matter what kind of rental home you live in, whether you're renting a condo, you're renting a room in a group house, renting an apartment, it doesn't matter whether you're living in a dorm room at UW, it doesn't matter where you live. If you are a renter in the city of Seattle, your rent cannot go up by more than the inflation rate. That should be the law. But as you might imagine, that is going to be a fierce struggle, because corporate landlords, big business, are viciously, and I don't use these words idly, they are viciously opposed to rent control. And that is the real reason they have launched this recall campaign, because they know that if we are in the city council come January, we are absolutely fighting for and winning rent control. And that is what's at stake. That is why it is crucial that we defeat the recall campaign. But what else are they angry about? They are angry about, above all, the example that we have set, that it is possible for working people to have our own voice in the halls of power, that never gets compromised, that never gets sold out, and that continues to use that office as a platform for building larger struggle. And it was on that basis, not by me talking nicely to other politicians and, oh, they're all so kind, they want to give you all the nice things. That's not how it works. And I've seen it for 8 years with my own eyes. That is not, you don't win victories for working people by talking in the back rooms. You win victories when you come out and understand that your strength lies with the tens of thousands of people who are suffering and who have a stake in fighting. And that is the basis on which, within months of my election in 2013, when we took office in 2014, we were able to make Seattle the first major city that won the $15 minimum wage. And what happened with that wage? 100,000 of Seattle workers who were in poverty were lifted. Is $15 enough? By no means is it enough. But it made a major material shift in people's lives. I have had workers come up to me and say, I was able to quit my second job because of the $15 an hour minimum wage, and I'm able to actually spend time with my children, make sure they have dinner, and do their homework. This is what it means when we win concrete material victories for working people. Their lives are transformed, and they have a bigger stake in fighting for bigger things. So when we won 15, it didn't stop with Seattle. Many other cities had working people fight for and win $15 an hour. Last year, in the thick of the Black Lives Matter protests in last summer, we were able to win the Amazon tax, which is a $2 billion, over the next decade, a $2 billion transfer of wealth from the largest corporations, meaning the wealthiest people. Corporations are not just inanimate objects. They are led by wealthy people. So when I say corporations, you should hear wealthy people, okay? So wealthy people are going to pay, as they should, for an expansion of affordable housing and Green New Deal projects. Similarly, using that kind of fighting approach, we have won a whole host of renters' rights. Do you know what law that we won recently went into effect yesterday? It is that your landlord cannot raise your rent without giving you 6 months' notice. That is now the law. In July of next year, another law that we just won is going to effect, which is that if you are displaced from your rental home because your landlord increased your rent by more than 10%, then your landlord, by law, is going to owe you 3 months' worth of rent to compensate you for the cost of moving. These laws, my friends, were not won by the largesse of the politicians in City Hall, much less the corporate landlords who are exploiting the renters. These laws were won despite the political and business opposition because renters fought for them. Renters came to City Hall and made it very clear to all the politicians that if you vote the wrong way on this, you are going to pay such a political price for this that you will live to regret it. And that is how we won, by being confrontational. And in this sphere of your faith, I think it is important for us to note that no victories in the civil rights era were won without the willingness of the leaders, including Dr. Martin Luther King, to be confrontational and wearing that as a badge of honor. We are fighting for our people, and we're proud of doing that, and that is what this recall fight is about. I'll just mention one thing, which I'm sure Tamar will get into, but one of the people who's bankrolling the recall campaign is this wonderful community builder named George Petrie. He is the CEO of a company called Goodman Real Estate, which is based throughout America and Canada. Goodman Real Estate in 2019 was the most evicting landlord in Seattle. And George Petrie has another distinction to himself. He was the biggest donor to Donald Trump from Washington State. These are the kind of characters that are behind the recall. Completely unsavory, anti-worker, anti-black kind of characters. And so, as Reverend Jeffrey said, indeed, what the times call for are fearless fighters. But it is not just elected representatives or faith leaders that need to be fearless fighters. We all need to be fearless fighters. And so, absolutely, we need sacrifice from everybody who has a stake in this to donate whatever they are able to donate, but that is not going to be enough. We need you out there with us canvassing because we have so much stacked against us. Our people are the ones who are going to be most disenfranchised in this election that is sandwiched between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we need to go out there and tell people what they are up against and why this is not an attack on Kshama. This is an attack on all of us who are fighting for an affordable city. So we better gear up and let's make them regret launching this recall against us. Let's defeat the recall on December 7th. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kshama. Hate to put anything between Kshama and the finance appeal generally, but I think just because our greatest weapon in this fight right now is going to be our solidarity, being well informed about what's going on at this moment, and telling our neighbors, telling our coworkers about it. I want to take a second just to go over the charges, just because I don't think all of us know exactly what they are, and it's not just enough to say these are not just misinformation, these are racist lies. It's important to know how. So I just want to go over that really briefly, and then I will give it up to Tamar, who is just inevitably going to make me look like I don't know how to do public speaking, because he's great. So what the first charge that a lot of people have heard about is that Kshama led a protest to City Hall during the Justice for George Floyd movement, and that is correct. That is absolutely correct that she did that. That is where the correctness ends, unfortunately, because this charge asserts that Kshama basically put the public in danger by having this protest inside City Hall, by having what was actually a masked, socially distant, hand sanitizer equipped public meeting where not only were we rallying for against police brutality, this was also a crucial organizing point for this movement to go forward and win something that I think is a historic first victory for the entire country, which is a ban on police use of chemical weapons and tear gas in particular, which I don't think has been won anywhere else in the country. Yeah, thank you. So not only is that a charge about participating in the Black Lives Matter protest, the second charge also claims that Kshama led a protest to Mayor Jenny Durkan's house. Many people have asked me, hey, leading a protest to someone's house is legal, right? And the answer to that is yes. There's a weird special thing going on where Jenny Durkan used to be a U.S. attorney, and so her address is protected for those reasons. But not like this is in, you can actually just go back in the media and read about this. The quote from the protesters who were going to that neighborhood that day said, "We heard a rumor that Jenny Durkan lives somewhere around here." And also that Kshama was invited to speak there by families of the victims of police brutality, and absolutely would speak there again, but did not lead a protest directly to Jenny Durkan's house, because not only did the protesters not know Jenny Durkan's address, nobody knows Jenny Durkan's address, least of all Kshama. But again, the important thing here is not that there was a protest in front of Jenny Durkan's house. It's the fact that communities who are deeply affected, not just by police brutality, but by, at that point, weeks and weeks of tear gas directly into their neighborhoods, thought that it was unfair and unjust that the people who were directly responsible for making that decision were isolated from the consequences of it. We're sitting in their gated communities, super insulated from the results of that, and honestly, from the epidemic of police brutality that was what was being protested at the time. And the third charge is related to the Tax Amazon movement, which, as Kshama pointed out, we won this past summer, a $2 billion transfer of wealth from the wealthiest corporations and individuals in Seattle to working people in the form of affordable housing and Green New Deal programs. This is super legally weird and wonky, and basically it claims that she used city resources to fund a ballot initiative. At the time that Kshama did what we elected her to do, which is organize a community meeting and print signs and buy pizza for working people who had taken the night to organize the Tax Amazon movement, Tax Amazon was not a ballot initiative and would not be a ballot initiative for many more months. So this is like a weird retroactive justification saying, if something ever is to be a ballot initiative, then it's illegal to spend money on it in the past. And if all of this sounds like legal gymnastics to you, it's because it is. If all of this sounds like a reach, it's because it is. Because these people are absolutely infuriated that we defeated them in 2019, and they're even more infuriated that working people in Seattle have someone who's fighting for them tirelessly like Kshama is. And I think it's important not to leave the historical echoes of this unaddressed. I think every person who has ever fought for justice, whether that be a civil rights leader, whether that be a worker on strike, whether that be any protester in any wave of the Black Lives Matter movement up until this point, has been told, well, I agree with fighting for justice, I don't agree with how you're doing it. And we all know that that's disingenuous, that the fight for justice is always going to make some people uncomfortable. But the point is that we go forward and we win things that working people need, always. And I wanted to add something on to what Kshama said about the Rainier Court struggle, and it's part of why why the tenants have been able to win such major victories is because of something that the council office organized to win several years ago, which is the Carl Hagelund Law, which is named for one of Seattle's most notorious slumlords who had been making, his tenants had been living in squalor for years. And that law says that it is illegal for a landlord to raise your rent if there are code violations in your building. And if you have stuff that is unaddressed by your landlord, they shouldn't be able to raise your rent on you. We won that. Of course, it doesn't seem like anybody told the landlords at the Rainier Court apartments. And I think this goes to point out that, even though we have this law in place, even though it is illegal to do this, these landlords thought that they could get away with it. And across the city, there are landlords who think that they can get away with this because, the struggle doesn't end with winning a law or winning a tax or winning a $15 minimum wage even. As long as we live in a society where, money equals power, there will be people who attempt to, the wealthy will try to raise the rent on you even if it's illegal. The wealthy will try to underpay you even though that's illegal. And what they are infuriated by is having a council member that doesn't stop at writing a bill and voting on it and going home, but someone who fights for working people and builds movements to enforce these. There is a lot out of our control in this election, as we've already said. The fact that these charges are so undemocratically written and undemocratically put on a ballot, and thousands of people will read them as if they are fact when they're not, that's out of our control. The fact that the weather is going to be terrible and we're going to be canvassing in it for weeks is out of our control. But what is in our control is how hard we fight. And we have had hundreds of volunteers out just in the last few weeks to canvass for our campaign, canvassing through the bomb cyclone, canvassing through the hail today. I think that it is really important that we're all here today to raise the money that is necessary to keep this movement fighting and to make sure that every single person in this city knows to get their ballot in and vote no on the recall by December 7th. And so I'm not going to delay anymore. I'm going to bring up Tamar so we can do that.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Good evening. My name is Tamar, and I'm an organizer with the Kshama Solidarity Campaign. I'm also an organizer in the Movement for Black Lives, and I am here to talk to you tonight about exactly how we're going to defeat this right-wing recall and how we're going to raise the money in order to do so, all right? In a second, I'm going to start calling out some numbers, right? You may already have a number in your mind about what you want to donate. I am going to ask you to dig a little bit deeper tonight, all right? This is a crucial, very crucial moment for our campaign. We only have 30 days left until Election Day, and now that the November elections are over, right, big business wants this feather in their cap. They want Kshama Sawant out of office. So when you hear a number that you want to donate, right, raise your hand and keep it raised. We're going to have people coming around with donation envelopes for you to make out, to fill out and to make your donation. We can take card or check, and if you want to give a certain amount, but you need to break up your donation, that's totally fine. We can absolutely do that. Even though the election is in December, right, we will have financial considerations after Election Day, so please help us out. Even just talk to the person processing your donations, and we'll make that happen, all right? So we know that this recall election amounts to what is a full frontal assault on the Black Lives Matter movement. Its dishonest charges are meant to vilify last year's peaceful protests in the Justice for George Floyd protests, casting them as lawless riots, right, and making the false claim that Kshama broke the law. The charges will paint the protests, which 20 million people participated in, with generalized racist characterizations. Millions of everyday working people, right, of every age, of every race, and every creed, in the largest cities and in the smallest towns, participated and rose up in anger at the murder of George Floyd. Kshama Sawant was right there, right, standing in solidarity with the movement for racial justice, even getting tear gassed herself. Where I come from, solidarity is a verb, and as a socialist who uses her office to build movements, Kshama used her office to win a huge victory for the movement, which was the first in the nation ban on police using chemical weapons and rubber bullets on protesters. This victory showed what's possible when we stand united, right? And what an elected official can do when they're willing to put their office on the line to build movements, and that's what really scares big business and corporate executives who are financially backing this recall and are willing to use the racist attacks against Black Lives Matter in order to win. We need more elected officials like Kshama Sawant, right, who are willing to put themselves on the line to advance the causes of racial, social, and economic justice, not fewer. The right-wing recall will serve as a referendum on the Black Lives Matter movement, and with so much on the line after the losses on Tuesday, we cannot let the right wing win. Can anyone here give the maximum donation of $1,000 or max out their current donation to $1,000 to defeat the right-wing racist attack on the largest social justice movement in this country's history? All right, no worries. Smaller numbers to come. All right. Leading up to Tuesday's elections, corporate PACs spent a record $2 million, right, running a fear-mongering law and order campaign in order to make these elections a referendum on the Black Lives Matter movement. We have no doubt that these same corporate PACs are going to be pouring major cash into the same sorts of racist attack mailers and ads to recall Kshama and sow discord into the multiracial working class movement that we've been able to build here in Seattle. 2 years ago, right? Just think, 2 years ago, Amazon spent $1.5 million just 2 weeks before the election trying to unseat Kshama, right? And guess what? We still defeated them, right? We know what it's worth, right, to stop a grassroots, multiracial, economically progressive campaign that present a threat to their bottom line. Like Reverend Jeffrey said, they will spend anything. We will never be able to outspend the right wing and big business, but we beat them in 2019. Then we went on to win the historic Amazon tax, the winter eviction moratorium, historic renter rights, and the nation's first ban on police use of chemical weapons. We can beat their corporate PACs again, but we will need everyone chipping in what they can. Who can give $500 to help beat these corporate PACs and defeat the right wing? Just like we did in 2019, we can do it again. Thank you, Reverend Jeffrey. Thank you so much. Can we get anyone to match him? Thank you, Reverend Jeffrey. Thank you so much. Can we get anyone to match him? All right, moving on. Take one moment right now to think about the fights that our working class movement has taken on and the victories that we've been able to win here in Seattle. Raising the minimum wage, the Amazon tax, the first in the nation ban on police use of crowd control weapons, and a slew of renter rights first. We have been able to win these victories, right? Because Kshama uses her office to build movements of everyday working class people fighting for progressive change. Fighting movements give working class people a real reason to vote, and it drives our historic turnout, and that's how we've been able to win our last 3 elections. Big business and the right wing engineered this election date for December 7th. Why? Because it's sandwiched between the 2 largest holidays in our country's history, right? This recall will be the first December election in Seattle's 150-year history. And with ballots being mailed out the week before Thanksgiving, it's a deliberate, concerted effort to suppress the vote of Black people, young people, renters, and working class people of every type. This is what an anti-democratic, racist, systemic disenfranchisement looks like. Even in a city like Seattle, right, with mail-in voting that makes the system more accessible than in other places, this holiday election date is meant to confuse voters and produce a lower voter turnout. Some people will be out of town for the holidays. Some will think it's a duplicate ballot. Some will have recently moved. Right? And due to our city's housing crisis, they may not have an updated housing address. Potentially thousands of people, right, who care about defending our movement and who would vote for Kshama otherwise may not even know that the election is happening. And this voter suppression, make no mistake, right, is directed at Seattle's communities of color, particularly Black people and other immigrant communities. This is why we have to build the largest get out the vote movement that Seattle has ever seen in Seattle's history, and not just to keep Kshama's seat, right, but to also defend the Black Lives Matter movement, the movement for police accountability, and all those who care about standing up against the right wing's attack on voting rights nationally. Who here can give $200 to help fight the right wing's voter suppression? Right, no worries, let's keep it moving. Right, the uprisings against police brutality last summer showed that police accountability is long, long overdue. Though we saw millions of people around the country marching in protest against the racist murder of George Floyd, the sad truth is his death was not unique, right? Tens of thousands of people have been killed by U.S. law enforcement in the last couple decades, often with no investigations after. Though we don't have enough elected officials, right, willing to put themselves on the line for police accountability. Kshama was the only no vote on city council during the 2018 vote on the police union contract, which included dramatic rollbacks in police accountability. When last year's protests erupted, she took the movement's demand to defund police by 50% and was the only council member to stand by it when the protest movement ebbed. Kshama is the only council member fighting for real community control over the police with a democratically elected oversight board, which would give us the power to hire, fire, investigate, and even to set budgetary priorities and policies for the department. Not only that, Sawant is constantly building movements for things that we really need to build community safety. We are safest when we have good jobs, housing security, and well-funded social programs. Through the People's Budget, which Kshama's office has organized every single year since she won office, we have won major victories, right, to fund the services and resources that we need, including millions of dollars for affordable housing, more than $650,000 for Central District small businesses hit hard by COVID, and $500,000 in long overdue funding to build a new park and community services near the Garfield Community Center. We know it's not just the Amazon tax or the $15 minimum wage, right? It takes battles of every size to win the things that working class people need, and Kshama shows up for all of them, just like she's showing up for the Rainier Court tenants. Who here can donate $100 to keep a tireless fighter for police accountability and real community safety and renter rights in City Hall? Thank you. We have one right there. We have one right there. One right there. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Can we get a fourth? And one right here, right, as well. Thank you. Thank you so much. Every single sacrifice helps build this movement. Every single sacrifice helps us get out the vote. Every single sacrifice helps us defend the Black Lives Matter movement and fight back against racist voter suppression. So I'm sure as you guys saw when you came here, right, it was raining, right? It was even hailing earlier today. And so if we want to win, and we do want to win, right? We're going to need to build the largest get out the vote movement, right, operation that Seattle has ever seen. Through all this month and into December, we'll be going all out. And as we head into the most intense period of our election, we'll endure some of the worst weather that Seattle has to offer, right? A couple of weeks ago, we were out canvassing during a bomb cyclone, right? And that almost put a stop to our operations, but we were still out there in the rain, fighting for Kshama, fighting for the Black Lives Matter movement, fighting against racist voter suppression. And even today, we were still out during the hail, letting people know about this racist attack against our movement and our most vulnerable communities, right? We need to fight through this, and we're going to need to winterize our operation to do so. Right? Over 500 people have volunteered with our campaign so far. Even though dozens of volunteers are willing to brave the wet and cold because they know how important our movement is, we want to keep our volunteers as safe and as dry as possible. That means, right, that we need ponchos, we need flashlights, we need reflective vests, canopies, hand warmers, Ziploc bags, all of these small things, right? And being able to properly equip our volunteer army means that we'll be able to talk to potentially thousands more of people, right? And fight for the highest voter turnout possible. And that's how we're going to win this election. Can anyone here help donate $50 to help weatherize our massive Get Out the Vote operation? Thank you so much. We have one right here. Can we get that matched? Can we get another $50 donation to help us build this Get Out the Vote operation? That's fine. Can we get someone to donate $25? $15 for the city councilwoman who won us 15. Even $5. Every sacrifice goes to this movement. Every dollar will be well used, right? I want you to know that. Help us out. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone so much for your sacrifices today. I'm going to turn it over to Grayson, right? We are fighting to win, and when we fight, there we go. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Tamar. That was awesome. And thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. That is the end of our program. I just want to let you guys know about a few other things that we have going on. As we have pointed out, the way that we're going to win this election is with voter turnout. And one of the ways that we are doing that is we have these little things called GOTV cards, get out the vote cards, pledge cards. We have them at the sign-in table, and basically all it is a pledge to vote, to talk to 3 people that you know about voting no on the recall, make sure they know about it, make sure they know how to get their ballot, and make sure they know to vote no. This is a very unique election, not just in the sense that it's a special election, but in the sense that this is still a pandemic. Normally in an election season, we are able to go into these big apartment buildings and talk to a ton of people who are super directly affected by the things that we're talking about, who want to fight to win rent control. That is not possible in this environment. And there are a lot of places where we would normally be able to talk to people that we're not able to at the moment. So we are really relying on our community. We're relying on our solidarity to make that happen. So if you know of 3, 2, or even 1 other person that you can mobilize to vote no on this right-wing recall, fill out a voter pledge card on your way out. And also come out to do something with our campaign. You can canvass with us. You can set up posters with us. You can deliver yard signs. You can even just put a yard sign in your window, and we have those for you also at the sign-in table. There are so many ways to help us do this. So thank you all so much for your time, and thank you so much to the New Hope Church for hosting us and for Reverend Jeffrey for putting this together. And that is all we have. Thank you so much.
Thank you.